Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we're going to talk about Proposition 47 and Gavin Newsom's underhanded, sneaky campaign in order to prevent California voters from voting this proposition down, because Gavin Newsom, even before he was governor, was a long-term supporter of this proposition. He's an advocate for it, he's a defender of it, and he believes, and I'm not kidding, that Proposition 47 going down will hurt his theoretical run for president in 2028, so he's decided that he wants to let the residents of California suffer because it could hurt his political legacy. And by the way, we have the emails to prove it. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, thank you to everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
Came to San Francisco just to ask the governor about this. He was at Manny's while some Democratic state lawmakers are working behind the scenes on an effort to try to dissuade the Proposition 47 ballot initiative campaign from moving forward with its efforts to reform it.
So essentially, there's an organization, like many an organization in the state of California, that seeks to put Prop 47 on the ballot again, now that it has been almost 10 years and it is insanely unpopular. Gavin Newsom doesn't like this, so essentially one of the strategies that he's tried to implement is by introducing some petty, small, insignificant reforms to the law that won't do anything to address the problems with it, what it has created in the state of California, and this is done to show that he is willing to compromise, but in reality, it leaves the core tenets of Prop 47 in effect, because that is considered a portion of Gavin Newsom's legacy. And again, Gavin Newsom doesn't want to admit that he was wrong about this, so he would rather have Californians suffer than actually take a possible political L, even though I believe that if he came out and said things have changed, then he would actually be all the better for it. But again, this is Gavin Newsom trying not to be made fun of, thinking about his presidential prospects, while ignoring the problems with this proposition since it's been in effect back in 2015.
Are you in the legislature trying to negotiate the potential repeal of Prop 47 off the ballot?
So there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of negotiations concurrently happening, parallel, so among many of them, Prop 47 is included.
Are you all just not confident that if it hits the ballot that voters will approve it?
It's just, I don't think there's a need to have it on the ballot.
Now I have to give credit to the local media for chasing down Gavin Newsom in San Francisco, where Proposition 47 has created a lot of different various issues in that specific part of California, and his answers are absolutely nonsensical and ridiculous. He is doing everything and anything in order to keep it off the ballot because the guy is an absolute scumbag, and again, he is thinking more about his personal legacy rather than the actual consequences that everyday Californians are actually facing.
Why have something on the ballot that doesn't actually achieve the goals that are intended? Why do something that can't be done legislatively with more flexibility? I think it's a better approach to governing.
So you'll sign a legislation that might carry those inoperable clauses?
I will not tell you what I'm going to sign until it lands on my desk, because it's a process that's constantly evolving. But as you know well, better than most, we initiated and launched a package of bills working in partnership with both houses of the legislature that have been fantastic in terms of addressing the legitimate concerns that we've been highlighting for years now.
So right there, Gavin Newsom is talking about how, the proposition system, the ballot initiatives, they're very inflexible, it's hard to implement, it creates problems, and in reality, you should rely on the legislature in order to deal with this because they have more flexibility. Now, this would be an interesting argument, an interesting sentiment, if not for the fact that he is defending a proposition that was a ballot initiative that has proven to be inflexible for residents of the state of California, and that's the whole root of the problem. But what I find amazing about this is that Gavin Newsom's package of bills all have triggers that basically make them inoperable if they were to get this Proposition 47 repeal onto the ballot and have it end up passing. So essentially what Gavin is trying to do is extort residents of California who are likely to sign this petition by saying, hey, look, that petition may fail in the future because the ballot initiative may not pass. So right now we're going to pass some laws that do a little bit, but guess what? As soon as you get that up there, it's out of here. It's gone. Forget about it. It's over, because I'm Gavin Newsom and I care more about my presidential prospects than, actually protecting residents of California.
Now, lawmakers, we know, are trying to add inoperability clauses to some bills that already are trying to crack down on retail theft and other crimes. But those clauses mean that if voters approve the initiative to reform Proposition 47, those proposed laws would not go into effect. Democrats say this is to avoid inconsistencies in the law, while Republicans say it's a poison pill.
And if you don't believe that this is the case, that this is just a tactic to preserve Gavin Newsom's legacy, like I said, CBS News, and credit to them, has obtained emails from Gavin Newsom's chief of staff that explains quite clearly that this is all a political strategy. It has nothing to do with what is actually effective in terms of legislation, and I want to go over this article so you guys can see for yourself what's actually going on behind the scenes.
The battle over a ballot initiative hoping to crack down on retail theft is intensifying. Some Republicans and Democrats at odds, others reaching across the aisle to work together.
And now a CBS 13 News exclusive. Investigative reporter Julie Watts obtained emails between the governor's office and initiative leaders, which reveal what led to the breakdown of negotiations.
So an email chain obtained by CBS News California Investigates reveals that the governor's chief of staff would not negotiate to strengthen a package of Democratic crime bills unless the Coalition for Crime Victims, retailers, and law enforcement leaders would agree to postpone their ballot measure until 2026. Now, the reason that 2026 is the deadline that Gavin Newsom's chief of staff wants them to go with is because 2026, that election, Gavin Newsom will not be on the ballot. He will be termed out as governor. Therefore, this will be the perfect time for them to do something that repeals a legacy of Gavin Newsom. Again, this is not about concern about the victims. This is not about a policy issue or anything like that. This is specifically Gavin Newsom trying to postpone the ending and destruction of part of his legacy that he's advocated for 10 years before he was even the governor from taking effect until after he's gone. So he could throw his hands up and say, hey, look, they did that. It was not something that I was in favor of. They didn't vote against me because I wasn't really on the ballot in that instance. It's not a rebuke of my legacy. Vote for me for president in 2028. That's what he's being concerned about right now.
Hey guys, leaked emails make it clear that the governor's office does not want Californians voting on a retail theft, crime, and homelessness proposition on the November ballot. His chief of staff made it clear she did not want to negotiate a package of crime bills that Democratic leadership are pushing through unless a coalition of crime victims and law enforcement leaders and retailers would agree to pull their ballot measure off the ballot completely until 2026.
Now, at issue is what is called the proposed Homelessness, Drug Addiction, and Theft Reduction Act. It is intended to reform Prop 47, which was approved in 2014 by the voters, that reduced punishments for drug possession and thefts under $950. The ballot proposal has been billed as a Republican-led initiative, but it's actually sponsored by a group of victims advocates, businesses, and public safety leaders, including former prominent DAs. Top donors for the ballot measure, which has now qualified for the ballot, include Walmart and Target. Now, one of the tricks of Proposition 47 is that it lowers consequences for things like drug possession, for issues related to homelessness, theft, and whatnot, and what are classified as non-violent crimes. And as Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks says, when this was proposed way back in 2014, this is something that she voted for.
But then came Prop 47, which slashed penalties for drug possession altogether. And look, I admit that sounds real good on the surface, which is why I myself voted for Prop 47. But it also took away a powerful incentive for addicts to receive rehabilitative services.
However, and this is absolutely crucial, they ended up changing the definition of what was a violent crime after this initiative went into effect, so it ended up protecting a bunch of things that people like Anna, who were in favor of some criminal justice reform, didn't expect, and this is why so many Californians have turned against it.
Not only were violent felonies reclassified as non-violent misdemeanors, something voters did not know would happen, but it served as a catalyst for open-air drug markets, public drug use, and record numbers of overdose deaths in the state. It also reduced penalties for theft, which is why you might have seen all those smash and grab videos out of California.
Now, in the absolute purest sense, I want to put this out there, it is totally fair to say you voted for this, you deserve the consequences of this, because in this case, where it's a ballot initiative, that is in fact true. But even something as straightforward as ballot initiative, it turns out, is vulnerable to tricks after the fact, which is the California legislature going out of their way to recategorize crimes in order to fit into this ballot initiative that were never intended initially by the voters to be recategorized and treated in this bad way, in this way that has no consequences. So again, you can hold these people accountable, you could say that they voted for this, but remember, they changed the rules after the fact, and now there's this fight in order to prevent people from trying to vote for this again.
You know well, better than most, we initiated and launched a package of bills working in partnership with both houses of the legislature that have been fantastic in terms of addressing the legitimate concerns that we've been highlighting for years now.
So it's important to understand that those great bills that Gavin Newsom is talking about that are going to address the concerns that everybody's worried about, the Democrats are posturing themselves as willing to negotiate on this particular issue out there in the public, or at least they were, but these emails show that they never intended to do so. They show the exact opposite. They show that these bills are being put up in order to maintain the status quo, and they're meant to be a distraction, and we can see that, again, with what Gavin Newsom's chief of staff is saying behind the scenes.
The issue is the Homelessness, Drug Addiction, and Theft Reduction Act, and it's intended to reform Prop 47. That's the 2014 voter-approved law that reduced punishments for drug possession and thefts under $950, which, according to law enforcement and retailers, means even repeat and career thieves and people in possession of hard, lethal drugs now only face misdemeanors, which in California means no time in prison and rarely any time in jail.
In one email, the governor's chief of staff, Dana Williamson, tells the coalition's lead negotiator, Greg Totten, that leadership is willing to negotiate on the package of crime bills, which would take effect immediately, clarifying, as far as an initiative, we're open to something in 2026. Totten replies, as I noted previously, our focus is on amending Proposition 47 for the 2024 ballot, adding, if the administration is prepared to consider an amendment of Prop 47 on the ballot, then we are happy to meet. Williamson responds, quote, if that's your position, then I agree. There's nothing to talk about. She adds, it's really amazing how you are incapable of taking a win, and the consultants you're working with haven't won anything in a decade. Good luck. So unsurprisingly, somebody like Gavin Newsom, who is an absolute weasel in every possible way, who is trying to deflect, deny, go after the state of Florida for the problems over there, has people like this working for him. Nasty people who don't want to negotiate anything in good faith. All they want to do is protect Gavin Newsom's legacy because they're trying to ride his coattails to the White House, and this is one of the reasons why the man should never be president. Never for a second should be considered, even if he kind of looks like a president.
Now, lawmakers, we know, are trying to add inoperability clauses to some bills that already are trying to crack down on retail theft and other crimes. But those clauses mean that if voters approve the initiative to reform Proposition 47, those proposed laws would not go into effect.
Like I said, and like the media reported, they essentially added all these poison pills to these various bills meant to reform Prop 47 that would essentially make them null and void if it ever got to the time where Gavin Newsom's favored policy was at risk. Because again, it's not about helping the residents of California, it is about making sure Gavin Newsom is successful politically.
A 2020 paper from the New York-based Center for Court Innovation surveyed California drug courts after the passage of Prop 47 and found participation was down statewide by 67% between 2014 and 2018. This impact is seen in nearly every county in California.
Now, while it is very important to understand that Proposition 47 has a lot of impact on theft cases, it lets a lot of repeat offenders out over and over again through the reduction of consequences, there's another less talked about aspect of it, and that is its impact on the open air drug markets that we see across California. Because you see, California was actually one of the first states to implement what are called drug courts, and drug courts essentially get addicts into this diversion program where they end up having to seek rehabilitation, and they can essentially neutralize criminal consequences in order to prevent themselves from going to prison, as long as they stay clean, as long as they get tested regularly, and that ultimately ends up leading to more positive results, or at least that's what the data showed pre-Prop 47. But the thing is, we have new data on what happened post this, because under Prop 47, a lot of different drug drug crimes and drug possessions were reduced to the level where they have almost no consequences, and because of that, all of the leverage that the drug courts had is null and void, because if you go into a court system and they say, hey, look, you're going to go on this path to rehabilitate yourself, it's a path to success, you're going to have to better your life, or we're going to send you to prison, a lot of people choose the rehabilitation. They choose to try to make themselves better rather than going to prison. However, post Prop 47, the negotiation goes like this. Okay, we want you to go into rehab. We want you to better yourself. We want you to go through this long and arduous process of getting off of these opioids that you're addicted to, or you can walk right out of the courtroom right now and continue to use on the streets with no consequences. Now, obviously, when you give addicts an easy choice to keep using drugs, they're going to take that easy choice and keep using drugs. And that's exactly what happened. And we've seen since 2015, which is when this law actually went into effect. Remember, it was passed by ballot initiative in 2014. Participation in drug courts, if you're lucky, if you're in a positive county, has gone down by about half, if not more so. And in fact, this is true in almost every county in the state of California. And this is while we're also experiencing the opioid epidemic. So we have more addicts on the streets, more people addicted to serious drugs, more overdoses and all of that. But we have less people being put into these rehabilitation programs. And that is because the state of California, local prosecutors, have absolutely no leverage to do so.
Even repeat and career thieves and people in possession of hard, lethal drugs now only face misdemeanors, which in California means no time in prison and rarely any time in jail. In fact, officers can't even arrest someone for a misdemeanor unless they witness the crime firsthand.
I mean, again, just think about how absurd the state of California is. Not only do misdemeanors, which by the way, never were supposed to equal prison time, because misdemeanor means you go to jail for up to a year for a gross misdemeanor, but the police can't even engage in an arrest of somebody who is committing a misdemeanor unless they firsthand witness it. So if you wonder why all these different various thefts don't lead to actual arrests, that is the reason why, because the arrests cannot stand up to scrutiny, because unless the officer actually sees the theft go into effect, if it's under $950, then they can't initiate even an arrest. And you wonder why crime is going completely out of hand. You wonder why these issues spike up in California, but Gavin Newsom, not interested in it. Again, the email chain exposes that all he's interested in is his political career, and it's absolutely shameful. But I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Should they try to negotiate with this bad faith actor Gavin Newsom, or should they force this on the ballot initiative, vote it down, and shame Gavin Newsom for trying every single dirty trick in order to protect it because he's more concerned about his legacy? I want to know what you guys think. Again, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Gavin Newsom's Prop 47 negotiations, wink wink. Till next time.